In the ensuing silence, a gurgling snicker becomes clearly audible. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I see our guest is too alive. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Start the gutting. Start the fun. The ugly shambles that is Rualdo's face dissolves into a semblance of a smile. Cease your inane mutterings. You may open your mouth when you are asked the question, but your answer had better be honest and to the point, or I swear by the Lex I will make you speak. Or rather, whatever remains of you after I finish preparing you for the interrogation. How many other people have you done this to? You make it sound like I was your first real success. That survived? Yes, and I didn't count the dead. The ritual is a complex one to perform, so it took Tavrisk and me a long time to calibrate it. And you were the one it worked on. To think of all the possibilities that opened up. Using the altar of change, I could have worked my way up to a Lord of Terra. What are you talking about? The very suggestion. The Proctor's voice resounds with fury. His steely fingers dig into Glato's collar. You sick degenerate. As my father used to say, if you've come a long way, keep going. I'm a dead man as it is, so I might as well dream a little. Fair enough. Keep dreaming. And while you're at it, why don't you tell me more about this Thysertium? This wretched little world held nothing worthy of attention, save for Thysertium. When I started having dreams about it and about changing bodies, I thought I was going insane. And I shared this with my sculptor, the now late Tavrisk. He helped me to understand the essence of the mineral. Experiments and studies followed, mostly carried out by Tavrisk. I don't have his gift, but oh, the things I could do if I were a sorcerer. In the end, he realized Thysertium was a potent psi-focus. After 1,000 cursed attempts and a combination of powers, energies, and sacrificial victims, Tavrisk managed to create his finest sculpture from it. The Altar of Change. A magnificent artifact, a door to eternity. No more limitations imposed by our mortal bodies. No ailments, no injuries. If your flesh is worn, just swap it for new flesh. Don't like your lot in life? Choose from 1,000 others. No longer just a dream, but its most perfect realization. Immortality in stone. I can certainly see the appeal. But let me ask you this, why the elaborate ruse? If you had this stuff ready and knew how to use it, why not just invite me straight up here as you were? The governor attracts too much attention, and I wanted my hands to stay untied. So I offered my court fool a fair bargain. He would become me, ruling the planet, living the good life, getting whatever he wanted, while I would be out there, flying toward the stars. We traded faces, clothes, and lives. And because I had gotten the local nobles in the habit of sewing other people's mugs on their heads, the switch went unnoticed. Ah, thus confirming it was in fact just a physical disguise, not an actual body swap. That does track. But the switch was only the first part of the deal. Naturally, I didn't mention the second part, the removal of witnesses. If someone is going to turn against you the moment there's a knife at his beloved sister's throat, you can't afford to keep him alive. Rualdo casts a hateful glance in Maeve's direction. I see, so how exactly did you envision this all playing out? The plan was simple and elegant. Vassara starts underpaying its tithe. The Arbites swallow the bait and send their messengers here. That's when I spring my trap. I change into the body of an arbitrator or proctor who lands here, pack up the altar, board the Arbites ship, and wave goodbye to this ball of dirt swinging in the void. A rogue trader would have been even better, but greed has a way of spoiling a good game of regicide. The plan has not changed, Vilrualdo. The Undying One has whispered your name, and the execution of his will is nigh. Of course, this game involved one key piece, the embodiment of freedom of choice, my magnificent altar. So much accumulated potential from years of experimentation. It is damaged, but it still beckons, waiting to be used. Rualdo looks you in the eye with a caustic smile. I advise you to keep it safe. Who knows how many thousands of lives it will claim if something happens to it, unleashing all that power. Well, it sounds like you're probably just trying to manipulate me, but I suppose that is a valid concern. Solo, I think we're done here. If you would. Since you're done, Solomorn points his weapon. Rualdo, you have committed unthinkable heresy, and I refuse to acknowledge you as a human being or read you your verdict as befitting a criminal. You're a stain on Thasara's history. You're a stain on Thasara's history, and it is time to wipe you from it. Although he executes the governor quickly, you see a fleeting expression of absolute disgust, perhaps even hatred, pass over the proctor's face. Maeve opens her eyes and immediately jumps to her feet at the sight of the bloodied corpse. She clenches her hands on her chest and her eyes well up. Easy, Maeve. That wasn't your brother. It was just the man who killed him. The young woman nods meekly, and a single tear runs down her cheek. Her voice is hollow when she speaks. You're right. He was the one who doomed him. Solo, anything else to add? Yes, I found the data slate with the shipment chronicles that they spent so much time vainly searching for. According to the records, the tithe period is 1 Terran decade, and the quota prescribed is 1,000 cargo units. The governor withheld 100 units from each of the 5 most recent shipments. That means this world has no actual difficulty regularly supplying its tribute. We can consider that matter settled. Deciding what to do with the Thasserdium is far more important. It is a resource we cannot afford to ignore. Solomorn looks you straight in the eye. I propose destroying all the Thasserdium already mined, as well as its deposits. Allowing an abomination like that to exist is against the Lex. As for assessing the degree of Thasara's corruption and deciding its fate, the law prescribes leaving this to the judgment of the world's owners. That is, the Administratum. Oh, I can't claim it as my own? Alright, fair enough. Dare I remind you, Lord Captain, that no one besides you has any knowledge of this mineral's properties? If it is left here, no one will find out. What a crafty way to paint me as a mindless henchman. Let me also remind you that I report directly to the Marshal, and my reports are thorough. Right. So they're finding out about the Thasserdium pretty much no matter what. Which doesn't bode well for Thasara, but we can perhaps buy them time by staking as best a claim as we can manage. I mean, they may not let us take the whole planet, but as a rogue trader, if we perhaps identify Thasserdium as something we're actively investigating, they'll cede us some leeway. I mean, who knows, perhaps we'll be investigating this substance for decades or centuries. Not to mention, of course, it might actually make for an exploitable asset of some sort. The certium is just a tool like any other. The governor misused it, but I'm certain with time and proper research, we can find a way to put it to use for the benefit of the Imperium. If our research confirms it's too dangerous to exist, then we will destroy it. I just don't want to make any hasty decisions. A bit unorthodox, perhaps, but that is why the Emperor, in his infinite wisdom, saw fit to make someone like me a rogue trader. Solomorn grinds his teeth, but obediently declares, "Your orders are clear, rogue trader." Maeve looks up at you pleadingly. "My celestial lord, what am I to do now?" And not a sliver of remorse, just fear for her own skin. Do not be swayed by a criminal's tears. I have seen plenty of these, and they are worth nothing. Or I should say, not worth more than a bullet. Okay, Solo, hold on now. I don't think she actually did anything criminal. In retrospect, going over our interactions, I think she's only really guilty of being naive. She was manipulated by the governor and her brother both. Tell me, Maeve, what can you actually do? I can brew recaf. I can do sweet with a foam of cream, or strong with special spices. I can dance, sing, carry scrolls and data slates. Okay, so like basic personal assistant stuff, and she, despite being a native to Thassaros, she did show at least some general understanding of off-world technology. She was handling the data brand and the slate attached. Though it's also probably safe to say she definitely does not have the skills required to actually govern a planet. You'll come with me. Live amongst the stars. Thank you, my celestial lord. You are my savior. You're going to trust a heretic with brewing your recaf. Then you ought to take a dozen local commoners along as well, to taste anything that criminal has handled. Alright, easy, buddy. Then, Thassaros' fate is decided, and there is no point in staying here any longer. The heretic mentioned that destroying the altar would risk deaths among the local population. Whether he was lying or trying to manipulate us is irrelevant. The abomination must be destroyed. As for any casualties, the Emperor will know his own. I'm not super crazy about that either, but, you know. As you approach the damaged altar, you feel an unpleasant weakness. You hear a faint ringing in your ears, as if the smooth surface of the stone is groaning from the wounds it has suffered. Okay, good. So we do actually get a choice. Orbital bombardment. Sealed away. Or secretly preserved. I mean, of the options presented there, obviously sealing it away isn't ideal because eventually someone will unearth it again, but that could be... Well, no, I mean, it also depends on whether or not the Administratum ultimately decides that Thassara needs to be destroyed. We'll hide it away. Bury it. No need to risk destroying it if we don't have to. The strange ringing stops, leaving behind an unpleasant echo in your ears. Your head must still be suffering from the effects of moving between bodies. You're interrupted by an anxious voice from the Vox. Lord Captain, do you read? The shuttle pilot reported the rescue operation. Enforcers are on their way. What is your status? Are you alive? Come in. I'm fine, Vigdis. In fact, we're just wrapping things up. I think we're just about ready to leave. Copy, Lord Captain. A moment of ringing silence, and then 1,000 shards pierce your mind. A familiar voice coils around your thoughts, drowning them out. Are you leaving without even conversing with me, child? Without even asking yourself how such a vivid soul managed to remain intact after wandering in the darkness's embrace and donning another's guise? Such rare luck for a mortal. In the icy silence, you are struck with a series of incredibly lifelike recollections. You are not alone, and you never were. It was always there, in your shadow, in your blood, inside you. Yes, Valin, this luck is named the Edge of Daybreak. Had it not been for my sleepless gaze, your mind would have long since joined the mournful host of those who are no more. It was I who kept you whole and unharmed, for I could not allow such a radiant destiny to fall to some absurdity. But at times I do wonder, is it worthy of my protection? So that would imply the only reason we even survived the transfer was because of this thing's intervention. Which does make you wonder about how Maeve will fare long term. Still underestimating us, are you? That's why you keep losing. Naivety is a bold luxury. Is it not time to face the truth, child? The threads of fate will not obey your desire alone, but I can help you grasp them once you are ready. Thankfully, I am generous. I give my chosen children time to understand. After all, human souls are so fragile. You feel a sharp pain, and a trickle of blood runs down your temple. And their time is so fleeting. The echo of the entity's voice lingers for a while, like the sound of distant thunder. Oh dear. Okay, well that's not a great sign either. If the voice had spoken to us sooner, I might have actually destroyed this thing, but we'll deal with things as they come. Let's have a look around. The shards of the monstrous structure emit a barely perceptible ringing sound. Or is it the whispers of the otherworldly voices telling of change? Base Biomancer staff. Would have expected more, but okay. Makes for decent trade fodder, at least. Trade goods, always welcome. Or at least the ones we still need. More trade fodder. Circles have been scrawled over whole stacks of scrolls. Each circle resembles the one daubed on the floor, but none replicates it exactly. Yeah, we should probably just burn those. Here we go. Heavy Maul, unique power hammer. If the wielder has a shield equipped whenever they hit the target, make an immediate shield bash with chance to stun. A bit too fiddly, requires a very specific build, which we sadly do not have, but I could see getting use out of it if you did. If you were going Maul and shield. Though in our case, of course, just more trade fodder. We'll take it. How about Tadua the Scorched? Oh, right, and the Governor as well. Cruel Fate. Unique Sniper Rifle. Extra Overpen. On crit, gain +1 AP. I mean, yeah, again, were this Act 2, that would actually be a viable contender. Though, of course, at this point, it doesn't really hold a candle to our Earth Tech Long Las. Huh? Would have expected Tadua to have something unique. I mean, I have to assume the rifle was Governor Rualdo. He and the nobles were the only ones, I think, who were actually sporting firearms. I imagine the nobles, of course, sporting cruder ones forged with the local planet's technology. Probably something we could have deduced had we passed that one check at the blacksmiths. The clear lines of the heretical symbols elicit a vague desire to touch them. Hard pass. Alright. I think we're pretty much done here, short of anything happening en route back to the ship. Obviously, I made a few questionable choices, but I feel like they were all ultimately in character for Val. Oh. Okay, well that's... Alright, we're getting something hinky here. Give me a sec to give this place one last pass, just to be sure. We've got a level up on tap anyway, so I'll figure out what to do with that too. Be right back. And we're back. If Tadua was supposed to drop something, then I can't figure out how to get it, so we'll just push on for now. Starting with our level ups. We are getting perilously close to that level cap. This time out, we get a double dose of talents. We get 1 exemplar and 1 first tier. And honestly, we're going to keep it kind of simple, like half our guys are getting the same exemplar talent. But we do have some variety. Val, for example, will go ahead and grab Know-It-All. That provides an intelligence scaled bonus to various useful substats. Though in his particular case, we're largely getting it for that dodge bump, both for safety and to boost his lethality, which most of his assassin abilities key off of. And for his first tier, we'll go ahead and grab Offensive Pattern Recognition. A fairly hefty damage reducer, which should help keep him safe during that integral first round of combat. It was either that or sniper expertise, and we just really didn't need the extra armor pen. Next up, we've got Abby, and he is the first of our party members to pick up Cataclysm, a nice stacking damage bump, which, given his reactive combat style, should stack very quickly once we get him properly set. It was either that or Lethal Threat, which makes him priority target for any enemy he hits. We'll probably grab that one next time. And then for his first tier, we'll continue stacking his offense options with Desolation. And then as for casts, I will say I was tempted to go Cataclysm, if in large part because I was curious if her forced move abilities would trigger it, but we don't use her to attack all that often, so I feel like we're better served starting, at least, with Attention, which grants a series of buffs when she gives someone an extra turn. That, at least, is something we're guaranteed to do with her every round. And then to essentially double down on that, we'll also go ahead and grab Decisive Response. That'll give her a little more wiggle room on what she can do during that setup phase. Something which will also carry over to Pask, since he's more support than offense, really. He will get Eager for Battle, a flat +2 AP on the first turn of combat. Which is actually important because we're also going to pair that with Machine Spirit Scan Protocols. Machine Spirit Communion is an ability I've been meaning to get more use out of. It's just one we rarely have the AP to spare for. But now that we have Eager for Battle, we can set up at the beginning of every fight with a Machine Spirit Communion. Then for Kibbles, she of course will pick up Cataclysm. She's the one who damages the most characters per turn. And we'll pair that with Spinning Blades, which honestly is largely just for my own personal amusement. She doesn't really need the offense boost, but as I'm sure you've noticed, I love those Afterburner boots. The ones we use to blow people away when she deliberately provokes while using Dance Macabre. This will basically just add an extra Blade Dance Chaser. Certainly not going to say no to that. Which finally brings us to Solomorn. He, of course, will also get Cataclysm, for fairly obvious reasons. And then we'll pair that with Law and Order. A nice little damage bump for his reactive attacks between rounds. And that's it. Level up complete. Nothing we really needed, but hopefully some things that should be a bit of fun. And then beyond that, I also took care of our trading. And I will say, biggest takeaway here, we are now halfway up the track with the Drusians. We are making tangible progress. Well, slightly less than half, but we're getting there. Sadly, as far as the actual gear goes, nothing super notable here. Stuff that might have been viable back in Act 2, but distinctly less so now. So a lot of that is apt to just become yet more trade fodder. This, though, we are also up one rank with the Explorators, which unlocks an item we might actually have a use for, our first full-on Space Marine Bolter. Not something we've got our version of Ulfar really keyed to use, of course, but it is good to have on hand should we ever decide to respec him. Though really, the big prize for our version of Ulfar will be this, the Pyre. Easily, I think, one of the best flamers in the entire game. We're also actually not all that far off from unlocking it. We only need 2,000 more rep with Explorators, which we should easily get just tooling around with our infinite colony yields. Speaking of which, we finally got our Drusian rep up high enough to finally tackle Holy Ammunition, our second to last colony project. Sadly, not much of a reward, not something we really need, but we'll certainly take it. And that's pretty much it for colonies, minus these events, which of course I'll take care of once we start moving around again. Though before we do that, in fact, before we do much of anything, we actually need to go back to Dargonis, because we cannot complete our current companion quest until we've officially reported in. Which, of course, we do want to do, otherwise Solomorn's quest won't progress properly. So back to Dargonis we go, and then from there, I suppose we'll pop out to our colonies real quick. Get those events cleared up before we get caught up with anything else. And in fact, I also noticed while looking at the map, Kiama Gamma's one hop out from Captain Sargona's treasure. So perhaps we'll snag that real quick whilst we're in the neighborhood. That's it, one thing at a time. Let's hit Dargonis. The enforcers from the different decks of the Von Valancius vessel report a terrifying sight. The skin of some crew members has become translucent, revealing knots of muscles and blood vessels beneath. Worse yet, small spider-like insects were seen scurrying inside of them, snow white and sparkling like ice. The transformed could not see this phenomenon in themselves or anyone else, only occasionally complaining about a prickly feeling in their extremities. Some were branded as mutants and killed. The survivors reverted after the vessel emerged in real space. Yeah, just another day in the warp, an endless parade of horrors. Endured for the sake of imperial convenience. That's really your whole setting in a nutshell. Colony project complete. Half a stack of tech collected. Let's pop on down
to the Palace of Justice. Should be a new location planetside. Not sure how long this will take, but hopefully we'll have enough time to pop back out and tie at least a few other loose ends before we call it. Yep, there we go. Administratum. Huh. Actually, this looks like it might be the same location we went to for Jai's thing. Okay, yeah, hold on. This is definitely the reception area for the Master of Seal's office. If we were to go through those double doors just off to our right, that would actually take us out to the larger waiting area. Huh. I guess... Okay, I mean, I'm a little disappointed, but I guess that's also a clever reuse of existing assets. Ooh, hello. Petition. New lore object. Petition number 36 Sigma/64. Through the efforts of the Adeptus Arbites at my family estate, 12 criminals among the members of my family were terminated. The proctor in charge of the purge decreed that the bodies be left lying at the scene of the crime for further investigation. 40 planetary cycles have passed since. The heavy odor and vermin resulting from keeping dead bodies without the ability to transport them ceased to be of concern to me after the first 2 cycles. However, the mummified remains of the criminals prevent my estate from properly functioning at this time. I humbly request that another officer be assigned to oversee the investigation, and that they be informed of the necessity of progressing the investigation in my home. Resolution. Petition rejected in accordance with Protocol UP 1845. Basis. The assignment of the head investigator is regulated by Protocol UCH 9389. Note. A fine is to be imposed on the petitioner for failing to preserve the evidence. Yeah, that sounds about right. Very, very Judge Dredd. Ah, I see. Okay, so that's how they fit it in. They've essentially replaced the Master of Seals with Inscribia. Unless Inscribia was always supposed to be the Master of Seals. I don't know. I don't remember what she originally introduced herself as. I'll have to go back and give that a peek. Perhaps she was always Inscribia, but only just now finally got a proper portrait. The shriveled, insect-like old woman greets you with a keen look. Welcome back to the Temple of Law and Order, your lordship. I have already been informed that you are here about Thasera. Prefect Voltour nods to herself and snaps her brittle fingers, prompting a servo skull to flit closer, the creaking of its quill filling the air. Begin entry 51/4-Alpha. In the matter of the world Thasera and its obligation to pay the imperial tithe, this audience with the prefect of the Adeptus Administratum is now in session. Now then, what were your findings, Valin von Valancius? Solo, you want to handle this? This was, after all, officially your investigation. And you were just talking up how thorough your reports tend to be. I am afraid I cannot accept another person's report. Her shriveled fingers nimbly extract a piece of parchment from her stack of papers. It is covered in minuscule writing. According to Coronis Expanse Statute 19/A-11, any decision pertaining to the matters of the tithe shall solely be answered for by the person that directly made said decision. A report made by any other person shall be deemed legally null and void. The prefect puts the document back in its place. As you can see, there is a sacred stipulation that you submit your report in person, and that I accept it from no one else. Very well. The man you met me to meet, Rualdo the Fair-Faced, was a heretic, and I had him executed. He was exploiting his position of power and the resources it afforded, as part of a plot to undermine the Empire.
I see. The old woman looks at you intently over her ocular lenses. This is regrettable news. Even if your action was forced by circumstances, the loss of the governor means the loss of the very stability that any servant of the Administratum is immutably obligated to uphold and protect. Well, let us get to the record, then. The prefect turns to the servo skull. Rogue traitor Valen von Valancius effected the execution of the governor of Thasura, appointed by the Adeptus Administratum. Preliminary damage assessment and restoration forecast of the world's key structures. Class A. Severe. Noted and recorded.
Not sure that's the most generous phrasing, but I suppose it's not inaccurate. I also discovered an as-of-yet unidentified warp-active material, which I have taken possession of and slated for study. My hope is that it might become a boon to the Imperium.
The prefect grimaces. I can quite confidently deem that outcome to be adverse to the interests of the Imperium. Alas, your lordship, I am duty-bound to deliver an exact and impartial assessment of the events. Rogue trader Valen von Valancius authorized the study of a presumably warp-corrupted material located on the world Thasura. Due to the danger to the planet resulting from this decision, tithe shipments from Thasura can no longer be considered safe, and are to be halted until further notice. Noted and recorded. The prefect chews on her lip in thought. I will be frank with you, your lordship. The conclusions that were drawn regarding the Thasura inspection were far from satisfactory. Minor disturbances, such as a mass execution of mutants or the rabble's plot disguised as a celebration, are not nearly as dangerous as the, if you will permit my choice of words, coup that resulted from your intervention. I understand that consequences are something that those endowed with power are wont to leave to their servants to deal with, and therefore something they find acceptable to ignore. Inscribia's ocular lenses flash as she looks up at you from her scrolls. However, I hope my words may help you to revise your approach to executing the Imperium's will in the Coronis Expanse in future. With a tap of her nail, she dismisses the servo skull. Before I say anything else, let me ask you this. How is it that you are apparently so remarkably well-informed as to contest my personal recollection of how things played out? Duty dictates that the Adeptus Administratum officials always be adequately informed. Otherwise, our service to the Imperium's order would be of rather questionable use. Unfortunately, it is for this same reason that I cannot disclose my sources to you. Well, be that as it may, I'm not really hearing much in the way of viable alternatives being proposed. What are you suggesting, that I should have left a murderous, heretical governor in place to simply spare you a little extra paperwork? I resolved the issues on Thasura as best I saw fit. And yet here you sit, trying to undermine my efforts by twisting my words to construe them as negatively as possible. The prefect's ocular lenses flash as she replies in an offended tone. I, his lowly and unworthy servant, have no right to twist any facts. My duty is to assess consequences and do everything I can to make sure the Imperium receives what is owed. That is the purpose of my existence. Suddenly, the old woman's voice becomes less stern and almost didactic. Speaking from my wealth of experience, if I do say so myself, taking care of the Imperium's prosperity is a heavy burden, albeit an honorable one. The fact that even a rogue trader can run into difficulties while doing it only further confirms my many years of observations. Right. Well, regardless, I assume that we can now consider the matter of Thasura closed?
Closed and recorded. Yes. The old woman smacks her lips in satisfaction. However, that was just the first item on the agenda. Now, on to the next matter. The prefect beckons over another servo skull, which obediently takes its place at her side. Begin entry 52/1-Sigma. Competency assessment of Proctor Solomorn Anthar, based on his performance during the mission on the world Thasara. You hear a painful metallic creak as Solomorn's augmented hand clenches into a fist. Competency assessment. Very well, Prefect. I'm listening. Why is this necessary? As the rogue trader overseeing this operation, I can assure you that Solomorn's performance was more than adequate. In fact, he saved my life multiple times. So as to avoid misunderstanding, allow me to clarify that I am not making any judgment, but rather gathering information at Marshal Strock's request. The prefect turns to Solomorn. Proctor Anthar, you will be evaluating your own conduct in this instance. For my part, I will merely state a few key points. Let us begin. How would you describe your performance, taking into account the following facts? Valtour produces a parchment scroll. You took part in the execution of an administratum appointee without its appropriate permission. You also allowed yourself to be captured, thus endangering your mission and imperiling the valuable equipment issued to you by the Adeptus Arbitus. What is more, you sanctioned a tithe-related decision that carries adverse consequences for the Imperium. The old woman pauses. That is all. Proceed to your self-evaluation. Solomorn's heavy gaze is fixed upon the prefect as he slowly forces the first words out of his jaws, as if they have turned to stone. I took every effort and was acting solely in the name of the Lex Imperialis. However, the outcome of the mission speaks for itself. My verdict is thus that my performance in the Thasara case was inadequate. Noted and recorded. The prefect's immaculately polished ocular lenses bore into you once more. Now that the Thasara inspection report has been properly entered into the record, allow me, on behalf of the Adeptus Administratum, to officially extend our gratitude to you for the support you provided to us. May the von Valancius name be forever praised, and may the Emperor protect your dynasty for many generations to come. That said, I must now request your assistance in a different capacity. A number of highly important court cases have accumulated at the Palace of Justice, the kind that require formal resolutions by the rogue trader himself. Solomorn, you don't think you're being too harsh on yourself? I already said that you performed quite admirably. That aside, what exactly do they expect you to do? Disobey a direct order from a rogue trader? In my eyes, everything you did was legally above board. I am exactly as harsh as my duty demands that I be. An arbitrator has no right to mistakes or weaknesses. Our mission is much too important. The proctor's voice sounds firm but detached, as if his mind is wandering far away. Be that as it may, I still find that this version of events reflects too negative a light on Solomorn's conduct. I insist that you at least include that I personally approved of his performance. Your version smacks of bias. To which part of the assessment would you impute bias? Everything in it is based solely on facts, and Proctor Anthar himself presented the conclusion. Regardless, the final judgment will be passed by Marshal Strox. I see. So this is the kind of conduct I should expect from representatives of the Palace of Justice? And people wonder why I was a crime lord before I became rogue trader. This is a temple of the law erected by your ancestors. Some cases could only be settled by heads of the dynasty, but since their time was occupied with other important duties, a facility was built for storing especially complex cases. At a certain point, servants of the Administratum were permitted to use the Palace of Justice for hearing disputes. Then, in Lady Theodora's time, the Arbitus became part of the legal procedure as well. Oh, that's a very subtle detail there. The Administratum oversaw justice before the Arbitus were brought into the loop. Her persistent negative framing could actually just all be part of an effort to make the Arbitus look less capable than the Administratum. How exactly does this all work? The defendants will speak first, whereupon you can ask me clarifying questions on the case, and then the old woman gives you a meaningful look over her ocular lenses. A death sentence must be passed. You are, of course, free to judge otherwise, but an execution is preferable, since in every case that will come before you, an outcome without highly unpleasant consequences is unlikely. Executions reduce the number of malcontents, and motivate prospective defendants to solve their problems before they come under the purview of the rogue trader's court. Well, based on what I've seen thus far, it certainly sounds like they're in better hands with me than if I were to leave them to the tender mercies of the Administratum. Very well. Let us proceed. There is one other thing, rogue trader. By the order of Marshal Strox, Proctor Anthar has been assigned a short-term mission. He is to take his leave of your retinue at dawn. As this is a matter of extreme urgency, the Adeptus Arbitus would appreciate your understanding. Another mission? Why was I not informed? Perhaps it would be best if I assisted with this one as well? Proctor Anthar is to lead an arbitrator squad tasked with neutralizing some dangerous criminals who are threatening the Administratum's interests. A rather mundane assignment, as you may have gathered. Yeah, I'm not so sure about that, not after how you've been conducting yourself here. But regardless, I'm afraid that's unacceptable. I've already integrated Officer Solomorn into my day-to-day tactical operations. If this mission is so mundane as you've described it, I'm sure you can find someone else. Sadly, that is not an option. The Marshal believes that out of the entire arbitrator force, only Proctor Anthar possesses the training required to successfully complete this mission. I cannot imagine that the brief absence of one individual, whose services, may I remind you, were temporarily lent to you by the Adeptus Arbitus, will be in any way damaging to the dynasty's affairs. I'm going to launch you into the sun. I must follow the Marshal's orders, rogue trader. I will return to your ship as soon as my duty to the Adeptus Arbitus permits. I have relegated my current tasks in advance, and thus am ready to escort you to the Palace of Justice immediately. Please, follow me. Oh, and we're going to a second location. Okay, well this just got a lot more involved than I thought it would be, so I feel like this is a good place to call it. Very intriguing developments, though. A lot more bureaucratic intrigue than I was expecting. That's it. We'll hit the pause button for now. I'll grab a quick breather. And we will pick up here next time, where when the heat is on, you get just ice. See you then. Oh, and special thanks to the Raiders, the fine folks who help make these videos possible, including but not limited to Eerie V23, Revenant, Alois, Bowman, Dragon Matrix 7, Drakiith, EgonAlter, Exsellsior, Gottlieb, James Trimmier, Kazorm, Lady Shayna, Mark Giemza, Nathan Welch Jr., OverlordPherom, RandomPassrby, RobbyB, Tomasz Piątkowski, Triphoppenskip, and Valinrook. Thanks for your support, guys. That said, if you'd also like to help support the channel, then feel free to push the buttons that do the things. Trust me, it does make a difference. Or you can even check out the PayPal, the Patreon, the Nexus GG, or the YouTube memberships. Links are in the description.
Always keep your eye on the price.